Welcome to another edition of the Big Nick Energy Podcast, the third episode of the third season. We have a great guest today. We've actually been trying to get a hold of this man on and off for almost 2 seasons now. And thankfully, the NBA has an off season, and a lot of the guys he's training are currently in FIBA. We have the CEO of Pure Sweat Basketball and a man that shot over 48% from three his senior year of college, Drew Hanlen, trainer of the Knicks, or trainer of RJ Barrett. Man, how are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. And like I said before we started recording, I appreciate your patience. I know that you guys have been reaching out for a while, and you guys have been one of the good supporting Knicks fans that have believed in RJ. And I know that he's went through ups and downs, but you guys have stuck by his side through thick and thin. So I always appreciate those fans that know that it's a process and know that he's got a long, great career ahead of him.
100%, man. This is a fan base that thought Ron Baker for a while was going to be the next big thing for a very short time. So to not believe in RJ Barrett is unfathomable, in my personal opinion.
Yeah,
um,
no, I mean it's one of those things that people, I get it all the time, from different fan bases, because I work with so many different players across the league. But the great fan bases are the fan bases that stick by their players. They believe in them, and the criticism can be fair at times, but even during the criticism, they stick by them, they support them, and that's what makes players, want to stick around and play for the organizations that have those fans that do support even during the tougher times.
100%. And thanks again for joining us. I really appreciate it. Before we get into you training NBA players and RJ Barrett more specifically, I also have a couple of questions about Carmelo at the very end. I wanted to ask you first your upbringing from playing in high school, you getting up at 4:30 in the morning and get shots up before class started, becoming a trainer while being a player for Belmont University in college, and there where you are now as a trainer for NBA players. When did you first feel yourself develop the immense levels of discipline and commitment required to be one of the most recognizable trainer names today? Like, when did you first feel the urge almost to wake up at 4 a.m., get shots up before school and stuff like that?
Yeah, to be honest with you, my training career really stemmed from my playing career because, as a player, like you said, 4:59 a.m. was when I woke up every morning and met my high school principal at 5:15 a.m. I would shoot 1,000 shots before school every day. That started in high school, but the routine really started when I was 12 years old. I gave up sweets, no ice cream, no candy. I basically was like, all right, I'm going to try to do this month-long challenge. Ended up doing it for 2 months and then end up doing it for my entire, basketball playing career. So for 10 years, I did not have, one drop of soda, not one bite of sweets, ice cream, cake, any of that kind of stuff. Just because, I knew that, that would improve my chances to, improve my athleticism. And then, from the basketball standpoint, when I was, 12 or 13, I started shooting, I think it was like 500 shots a day at first. And then, once I got to high school, it became 1,000 shots. And so I was just a relentless worker. And, that led me to my junior year, Brad Beal's eighth grade year. I worked him out. His parents asked me to work him out. They were like, hey, we just want our son to know what hard work is. Brad hated the workout just because I was,
That's
I
fair,
was
man. I
super.
understand that from what you're saying.
Yeah, it was just super tough. We laugh at it when we reminisce back on it. And he's like, I remember leaving the gym like, man, F Drew, and I'm never showing back up. But he did come back in the gym. His parents pushed him to get back in the gym, and Brad and I were working out together. That's the part of the story that a lot of people don't get right. We were actually working out together. At the time, believe it or not, I was better than him. I was player of the year in Missouri, and he was just an eighth grader going to be freshman in high school. So obviously, more mature, obviously more advanced. And so we worked out together, and he saw a big jump in his game, went from like 8 points a game to 24 points a game. And, the rest was history. Everybody around St. Louis was like, what did Brad Beal do that summer? And the truth was he had grown a couple inches. He had already had a great foundation. His mom had taught him to shoot with proper form at an early age, and his brothers had, pushed him in the weight room that summer to get stronger. But I was the new kind of addition to the team, and so then a lot of other, St. Louis players took note and started training with me, and one of those guys being a New York Knick, David Lee, and David went on to be a two-time All-Star and a champion with the Warriors, and Jayson Tatum when he was a freshman in high school started working with me. So really, me being a hard worker led me to Brad Beal, who led me to the other local St. Louis players that I named, and Jayson Tatum and David Lee, and that just expanded throughout the country and started working with a lot of other elite high school players, college players, and pre-draft players, which launched my career to where it is today.
What was between those three guys, or if it was with someone else, let us know. What was the exact eureka moment where you were like, I can actually be a trainer and do this potentially for the rest of my life versus I'm just helping these guys out?
Well, one of the big moments was, I think it was Brad's like second game of his sophomore season. He scored 51 or 52 points in high school. And so for him going from 8 points a game to dropping, 50 in his second game, that was like okay, the stuff we're doing, the stuff that I was doing was working for me. But at that time, I didn't know how to be a basketball trainer. We all think that basketball training just means putting players through drills or, basically copy and pasting what you learned from your coaches growing up. A good basketball trainer is relentlessly studying the game, breaking down film, providing solutions for problems. If those solutions aren't working, they're finding new solutions for the problems. And I didn't have any of that at that time, but I saw that, we were going basically 3 hours a day because I was, again, relentless worker. And looking back, I always tell Brad, I'm like, probably like an hour and a half to 2 hours of that 3 hours was purposeful. The other hour was just, us grinding where it wasn't really necessary. But like I said, I didn't know better back then. And so that was what really started it out. And then I started training I had a bunch of academies, and I was like, man, you know what? A lot of these players are getting better. And it's not just Brad. It's not just me. It's, everybody that's going through this kind of relentless work ethic. Now all I got to do is fine tune all my methods so that we get more efficient and effective kind of workouts so that we can get better results in better timing. And that's when I went on this journey of just studying the game relentlessly, and it led me to where I am today, where I'm obsessed with the details. And there's no such thing as a perfect workout. There's no such thing as a perfect trainer. But I'm just trying to study my ass off and ask a lot of questions. And I'm fortunate to be around a lot of great players, so I can steal from all of them and give to other players. And so far, the formula has worked for a lot of players.
That's awesome, man. I absolutely love that. To use that as a segue, how are you able to incorporate both analytics and film from games and practices to help mold each client's needs or workout per se? Like, how much more do you take from like their stats? Like, say a guy looks like he has a great shot, but for some reason is only shooting like 75% from the free throw line, versus someone looks like they have a terrible shot or they have a push shot like Steph Curry, but he's the greatest shooter of all time. Like, how do you measure what to use eye test versus analytics to form each workout?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, to be honest with you, I always start with film. We start with film, and we go through and we've itemize kind of, okay, here are some of the priorities that we really need to work on. Then we check the analytics to make sure that the analytics are backing what we see on film and make sure that we're not missing anything. And then after that, it's just more of a Q&A session, meaning you ask the player, you ask the coaches, you ask the front office, kind of anybody that's in that player's ears, in that player circle. And then you formulate kind of a list that is, okay, here are the 8 things that we could work on. Now let's rank them. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then basically you circle number 1 and work on number 1 until that's, accomplished. And then you go to number 2, because if you try to spread yourself too thin and wide, then you don't get the depth that you need to actually improve. And so that's kind of what we do. It's a constant kind of pivot and go model, in the aspect of you try something. If it works, you keep doing it. If it doesn't work, you pivot and you try something else until eventually something works. And once you land on something that works, you hopefully lock in on that thing and make it automatic so that you can keep getting the results that you want.
Is there ever a time where you feel like you lock in on a number 1 or a number 2 for a player and it's not actually through trial and error or through film watching afterwards, it's not actually what they should be focused on?
Rarely does it happen where you miss, what you should be working on, just because you kind of know the role that player is going to have and the impact that they need. But there are times where you might start working on something and realize that there's a better bang for your buck somewhere else. I know this is a Knicks podcast, so RJ Barrett, for example, like, you know, everyone that's watched RJ, including RJ, we all know he needs to get shiftier. He's a bigger body, and we one of the big things that I've always been on is, hey, let's lose 10 pounds. Let's be shiftier. Let's do all these things. And we spent time on his shiftiness, but just naturally he's not a shifty player, and some players are stiffer than others. But what he is he's really, really strong, and he's really good with his hand swipes. And so this summer, instead of spending time on shiftiness, which just hasn't clicked over the last, year and a half ish, of kind of trying to implement that in some of his workouts, we really spent more time on getting outside defenders' hips so that he can use his strength to get through defenders instead of, naturally shifting them. There's two ways to beat defenders. Number one, you shift them east west and then you beat them north south, or number two, you shift east west and then go north south. And so we kind of shifted away from the, all right, let's try to, move our defender, to, hey, let's just move outside our defender and then use your strength as an advantage, which I think, it's got him a lot better results. He's been playing a lot more one-on-one this summer, just because, you have to be creative and go up against NBA athletes. Doesn't matter what you can do against me or Air or a chair or an intern. But, so
Very
far,
true.
he's beaten a lot of good players this summer. And, he's been, trying to play as much one-on-one when he's with Canada basketball as possible. But that's an example of, of course, we love, for him to be more shifty. Or you look at somebody like a Giannis or a Zion. Of course, everyone knows that if they added a 3-point shot, it would really help their game. But what Giannis did, which helped him a lot, was he said, you know what, I'm going to focus on just finishing better and a little mid-range shot, which is going to expand my game. And I don't want to start settling for a bunch of threes because that'll take me away from being aggressive. Or, you look, there's so many different examples around the league of players that, if they added some element to their game, it would really take them to the next level. But maybe there's steps or progressions to get to that point. So I threw out those just so you could kind of understand where I'm coming from.
That's fair. Speaking of RJ from before, Knicks fans a lot of last off season thought that we were expecting him to work a lot on his mid-range game or his 3-point shot shooting overall. Are you saying that he was the number one on your list, more of the shiftiness, and then shooting was like afterwards that, or was it like 1A, 1B kind of thing? We just to fill in the blank,
Yeah, no, I see. So here's one thing that the people that know me that have talked to me and know about RJ. So we changed RJ Barrett's form, the summer before he went to the NBA. And then his rookie season, there was, like, it's been noted that, there was a difference of opinion in the old coaching staff. They kind of tweaked it around. And after that rookie season, we went back to the shot that we thought would work for him. That was the season he shot 40% from three. Since then, we've made no mechanical changes to his shot. I think that sometimes it's noted, oh, Drew came into town and made changes. What we're really doing is we're just trying to get it back to where it was and where it should be. And so when people are like, man, why do you keep changing his shot? We're not changing the shot. We're trying to get it back to where it was the season he shot 40%, which is, the wide base, maintaining wide base and good balance, keeping his elbow out so that he has flexibility in his wrist, and being able to shoot a straight high follow through. That's what happened. At the beginning of the season, he started out very poorly. A lot of times too, and this is something that, I need to do a better job of getting to him early before the season starts, because a lot of times, like, we work really hard in late June and all of July. And then the last couple of years, he's played for Canada basketball, which means I don't get to see him all of August. I don't get to see him all of September. Then the season starts. And sometimes his shot has kind of drifted away from exactly where we need it to be. And then I have to go up there and we make the quote unquote changes that sometimes people like to report. It's really us just getting him back to his couple, keys that allow him to make shots. And so, the shooting is the number one skill in basketball. That's the only thing that really matters. And when RJ is making shots, he's really impactful. You see in the playoffs, we did quote unquote make the changes. Really, we just got him back to doing what he was doing. And then
Right.
he did a great job locking that in. And he had a great playoff run after, made those little tweaks. So, um, shooting has always been, the number one focus for all of my guys, including RJ. Obviously, he has a lot that he needs to work on. He needs to work on, adding some, finishing a variety of finishes so he can convert better around the rim when he gets there. Mid-range game, mid-range game is so important, not because analytically I know that everyone says go away from mid-range, but if you make mid-range jump shots, it keeps the defenders honest. So then it opens up and expands the finishing repertoire. If you know every single time that you drive, you're only going to get to the basket, then the defender can chase you, get to the rim and contest. Whereas if you have that mid-range game, then you can stop on a dime and take some easy 8-footers instead of, really highly contested 3-footers. That's something that guys like Jalen Brunson, on the Knicks have done such a good job of, a smaller guy, but he's really bullish in the aspect of he can get into your body, bump you off, stop, with the behind the back snatch or a step back, and then shoot those little, 8 to 12-foot fadeaways. So we know that that's another area he can go, and then just making open shots, making open threes. So there's a lot that he could work on. My biggest thing this summer, as we put out a little teaser of, mid-range shots is something that, he has to be able to make, converting around the rim when he gets there, because he does a good job getting there. It's just now you got to finish and capitalize, and then making the open threes. If you look at those three kind of 1, 2, 3, those were the three focuses that we thought would really expand his game and take his game to the next level. And, has he mastered all three of those? Not yet. He's young. He's still growing and improving, but we feel like we've made strides in those three categories that'll allow him to be the player that he was, during the playoffs, during that great run, and then also that he's shown, spots of throughout the season. But it's all about being consistent because, as a Knicks fan, sometimes, his production has gone in waves, but that's a lot of young players. You look at the other players in his draft class and other draft classes near his, there's no such thing as a finished product at, 23 years old or whatever he is. But he's a relentless worker. He loves basketball. He competes his ass off as as a Knicks fan, and he does it on both ends of the floor. Defensively he competes, offensively he competes, and so now it's about continuing to improve and improve until he does start entering the prime of his career, which is we're still a half decade, maybe a full decade away from, which is
Yeah.
the fun part about it.
You mentioned a lot of different things you were trying to work on with him shooting. One of the last two questions I have about RJ going into this upcoming season, if you were to give your honest opinion, is he most likely to experience the biggest jump in shooting at the rim, the mid-range, corner threes, above the break threes, or the free throw line?
I wouldn't even say there's one. I would say that, it wasn't a lock in where, hey, this is the only thing we're doing. It's not only off the dribble threes. It's not only off the catch threes. It's not only, finished around the rim. I think he needs to improve in a lot of those areas. You know what I mean? There's been just, like I said, inconsistencies. There's stretches where he's finishing so well and he looks great, and he's not shooting the ball well, but because he's finishing so well, he looks great. There's other times where he's making threes and he's not finishing well, and so he looks great and he's impacting winning. And so I think it's being able to put all those things together. I would rather see him improve a little bit in each category so that he becomes more of a versatile all-around player than just in one category and not have the others. So the finishing around the rim is important. He's got to be able to improve there. The mid-range shot, just adding it and being more willing to take those, on balance ones. Being able to sometimes transition into post backdowns on drives instead of forcing finishes like Jalen Brunson does a great job of, where he starts
100%.
to drive and then turns it into a back down. RJ's so strong and can really take advantage of his strength and his size down there against smaller defenders and punish them. And then being able to take the good threes, not take the bad threes, and make the good ones. You know what I mean? Those are all, keys. I told people this a long time ago, but Jayson Tatum, obviously being another guy that I work with, Jason's rookie season, he shot like 43 something, percent from three. And everybody was shocked. And the next season he shot 37.5% or something like that. And everyone was like, man, Jayson Tatum, what happened to his 3-pointer? Well, it really wasn't that he shot worse. It was that his shot quality and his shot profile changed. His rookie season, he was just catching shoots, shooting the open ones, whereas second season, He started shooting the step backs and side steps and off the dribbles. And so shot profile plays a big part in percentages. And so if you can get better quality looks at the basket, then your finishing numbers are going to go up. If you get better quality shots from three and don't take the bad ones, then obviously your percentage is going to go up. So one, it's about improving your shot profile. And then two, it's about converting better. And I think that both of those things will happen next season.
Using RJ's age and the fact that you mentioned Jayson Tatum actually helps out this question a lot as well. I know it varies differently from player to player, obviously, but Bradley Beal and Joel Embiid are both 29, 30, 31 plus. So they're a little bit on the middle stage of their NBA career. Tatum, RJ Barrett, you train Tyrese Maxey, they're all at the younger stages of their career. Chet Holgrem now. If you were to give like a 2-year age gap just on average, when do you see the biggest leap in ability for players? Is it like 21 to 23, 26 to 28, just based on what you've seen so far?
Yeah, it really depends. I think there's different jumps too. I think that if you look at in general, there's always jumps around the, 25-year, like when you're like 25 years old, you really see a big jump in like the players that you can see, okay, this guy's becoming a star. 23 to 26, that category is like when they're becoming a star. But a lot of times that becoming a star doesn't translate to winning championships and stuff like that. If you look at like the first time Michael Jordan won, or if you look the first time that Steph Curry won, or if you look the first time at all these, kind of guys, Jokic won or Giannis won, they're a little bit later in their career. So I think the first step is like, you can really see when guys are becoming a stars in the mid 20s. And then the later 20s, that's when you can start seeing the impact on winning championships and being able to carry a team. I also think opportunity plays a big role because, if you look at somebody like a Jayson Tatum, he's a number one option, and so he has the ability to kind of take that leap and bound. Guys like Anthony Edwards, they're kind of pushing the chips on Anthony Edwards. This is your team. Whereas I don't think that a guy like RJ or a guy like Chet or even like a guy like Tyrese Maxey, they're not asking for the same thing out of those guys. RJ has, Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle on his team. So if you said, hey, Jayson, you averaged 30 points a game last year, that's what we need from you. It's not realistic to ask RJ to go average 30 points a game with also
Right.
Brunson and Randle on your team. Same thing with a guy like Chet, who has Shea Gilchrist-Alexander and a bunch of other players, and Chet still has to develop physically. That's his biggest thing. He's got the skill and he's got the tools. He's got to be able to develop physically, which is going to take him another 3 to 5 years to get the strength and size he needs to actually be able to apply those skills in games. A guy like Maxey, it depends. You look at what he did when James Harden wasn't playing last year, and he averaged, I think, 24 a game. Whereas when James was playing, he averaged just, I think, south of 20. A different role, different, opportunity. So I think it depends on the opportunity. I also think it just depends on, where a player is, as far as mentally, physically, and, skill wise. But I would say that the team that the Knicks have, they're very deep. They're very, very well rounded. I think the thing that can help them the most, with RJ specifically, because he's the only Knick that I work with, is just consistency. And if he can consistently bring it, like he showed, for multiple stretches last year and the most important playoff stretch, I think that's what they need most to take that next step.
Drew, thank you again for joining us. I just have a couple more questions. If anyone hasn't seen Drew Hanlen's TikTok specifically, that might be the best way for any young player wanting to get better at drills or any scheming of basketball whatsoever to do it in very, very short spurts. Drew, your TikTok, and I don't even watch a lot of TikToks, it's helped me as someone that just plays by myself a lot to actually get better with little drills. So much appreciated for even 20-second clips, man. I feel like it's like a real, like almost like looking underneath the current of like what you do for a living and how you help these actual players.
No, I appreciate it. Shout out to Sam Lamone. Sam Lamone's my content guy. To be honest with you guys, I can't take any credit for the TikTok stuff because I don't even log into TikTok.
Oh, wow.
My account is run by Sam Lamone, my content guy. So I just basically work out the guys. He posts a bunch of clips because, my ultimate goal is to help as many players, coaches, trainers, fans as possible. And, for fans, sometimes they learn the game, through these videos. Players and coaches, sometimes they can apply these things to their practices and workouts so that they can improve their game. And trainers, hopefully, kind of see, how much detail and attention go into everything so that they can level up as well so they can help their clients out.
It's too late for me, man. But once I have kids, been as a kid now, if we can get our kids to start waking up when they're 12 years old at 4:30 in the morning and shoot hoops, then we'll be doing something right and we'll be taking a play out of your book. That's for sure.
I love that.
To go with to go with some people that you don't actually train, who are your favorite players that you don't currently train in the NBA? Just to watch.
Man, there's a lot of them. I just appreciate greatness. I appreciate, different skills that each, players possess and stuff like that. You look at, I know I've worked with him in the past and stuff like that, but like Kevin Durant is just like a basketball savant. Like everything he does is so flawless and perfect. Steph Curry and Damian Lillard, their ability to shoot from deep and their confidence and their toughness and their swagger. They're guys I study all the time, not just because their shooting ability. Steph's footwork is unbelievable. Like everyone, knows how great, talented Kyrie Irving is with the ball and with his feet and finishing. But Steph and Kyrie, their footwork is unbelievable. Dame, his toughness, his ability to play low and play through people. That's a guy study. Jokic, his passing ability, as a big guy, him, Draymond Green, Sabonis, those guys are just, playmaking big guys. So, studying playmaking, those guys are guys that I look at. Then moves. I mean, there's so many guys that have such great moves, you just study all those guys. So, I'm a basketball geek. I like studying everybody and I try to steal from as many people as possible. But those are some of the guys that I really like. And then up and coming guys, Anthony Edwards, his swagger that he's got, his confidence. That's a player that I'm like, man, that guy's going to be really good just because he believes himself. He puts in the work. He loves basketball. And you can tell he's just a hooper. You know what I mean? And that's something that the NBA has kind of lost a little bit of. There's not as many guys that just love hoop. You know what I mean? It's because it's so much of a business. And there's not as many people that just like you see them just dribbling a ball all the time. And guys like him are guys like that. So I would say there's a long list of players that I love watching and love, studying. But those are some of the guys that, just came to the top of my head when you said that question.
You mentioned Anthony Edwards. I don't actually have a question to follow this up, but I feel like whenever someone is so athletic and so talented and skilled at so many different sports that they're able to, in essence, almost go pro in multiple things. Like he would have been like a 4-star recruit as a football player, but chose to play basketball. Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson were both drafted as baseball players, but chose to play football. If you're choosing to play one sport over the other, I feel like your just immense passion level has got to be through the roof, more so than any players that just like, I played basketball my whole life. This is just what I'm doing. I don't know if you see the same thing out of those types of guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a couple things. I think one thing is if you're good at multiple sports, then you have a natural athleticism. You also have a natural talent that transitions to everything. It's one of my favorite experiences traveling with guys was I went back to Cameroon a couple times with Joel Embiid, but seeing him play soccer on a local soccer field, there's videos out there that are on social media, but like literally there's like, there's bones from different animals that had like, passed away on the field. And he's still out there competing with 12-year-olds all the way up to like 30-year-olds and just seeing like his love for soccer. But then it's like, okay, no wonder he was so good at, picking up different footworks and different skill sets and using his body position and all that kind of stuff. Then you have different, Brad Beal, all of his brothers played college football. 4 out of 4 of his brothers played college football. And so, you're like, there's where the toughness is, a guy that's, 6'4" and able to be that bullish, average 30 points in the league back-to-back seasons. Where does that toughness come from? Well, he had 4 brothers that played college football. So I think that what you said was right. I mean, it's not only a love for the sport that they end up choosing, but it's also just, it's the guys that win in everything are the ones that you want on your team. It's like if you play darts, if you play pool, if you play, beer pong, it doesn't matter the guys that are competitive and want to win everything that they do. Those are the guys that you want on their team.
You said the word beer pong, and I couldn't help but smile because Vin in our friend group knows that that is not a thing to play around me. So I appreciate you even just randomly throwing that in there for me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I've never actually, I'm 33 years old. I've never actually had a sip of alcohol, but I'm a beer pong legend. I always have my partners drink for me, but as
Love
far as
that.
making the shots go, and also as far as the trash talk goes to, get the other team off their game. That's my specialty for sure.
Drew, if there's ever a time in my life that the stars align and we get to play on a beer pong team together, I think I would be able to die that day and be happier than I was the day before.
I love
I
that.
I have a couple of questions left for you, man. A couple about Carmelo, and then a couple about the Knicks as a whole. Obviously, this is a Knicks podcast. I'll need to get like one form of foresight from you. What was your first impression of Carmelo Anthony when you met him as both a player and a person?
Carmelo's awesome, man. Obviously growing up, since he's older than me, I just always appreciated how good of a basketball player he was. I know that he never won a championship and didn't make the playoff runs that will allow, some basketball, people that like to argue, be able to stamp him. But any real hooper knows how talented he was, how good he was, and how special he was as a player. A lot of what you see with Jayson Tatum, we used to study, Michael Jordan and Kobe were, first and foremost, just because I grew up idolizing MJ and he grew up, Jayson grew up idolizing Kobe. But so much of what we did was Carmelo Anthony, studying his film and his body positions, because not only did he have such a quick pull up and he had the quick dribble pull up, he had the hang pull up, but also just he was such a bully using his body. I mean,
Yeah.
as big as he was to move the way he did, um, individually speaking, I mean, he's one of the best pound for pound, skilled basketball players that we've seen. And so, I always appreciated him from afar. And then, just getting to talk to him, I mean, he wanted to give back to the younger generation so much. And it was amazing how much everybody respected him. And, he's just one of those guys that, just loves basketball, loves the younger generation of hoopers and wants to give back. And for that, the time that I've spent with him, I've always been appreciative.
The videos have been coming out of him training Kiyan in his free time. What do you think of Carmelo Anthony, the trainer, and maybe even future coach one day?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been in the gym with him and his son together, but I just think it's awesome. I've been able to experience some of my clients now training their sons, whether it's Brad Beal or Jayson Tatum, or now even like Joel, like throwing a ball at his kid. Like it's so fun for me to see those guys pass on what they know to their kids, but also being able to balance that, obsessed basketball mentality with also trying to be a good dad that's not obsessive. And I think that that's what you see, like the LeBrons and our Carmelos, they've done. They've stepped away and been like, you know what, we're not going to force our kid to play, but if they love the game, like which we hope they do, then we're going to make sure that we pass on all the knowledge that we can and the resources that we can. And I think that's what Carmelo did. If you looked at, I remember when the first video started popping up of his son playing, and you could just see this like lengthy, like, kind of uncoordinated at the time, player. And you're thinking, how is that Carmelo Anthony's kid? But it was really because he didn't want to force it on him. And then you started seeing, the videos of him bumping, Carmelo and working on triple threat. And you're going, man, he's giving his kids so much gold. And now to see LeBron's kids develop, to see Carmelo's kids develop, I think that's awesome, because I think it's so hard for elite athletes to turn off the killer mentality that they have as a player. And it looks like from afar that Carmelo was able to turn that off, let his kid actually choose to play basketball. And then once he did choose to play basketball, he was able to pour into him and help him become the player that he's becoming today.
For anyone that's not quite near the point of being drafted or college age yet, is there anyone in the high school ranks that you're currently working with or you're expecting to work with in the near future that you expect to have a big NBA career?
No, I mean, I just ran Jayson Tatum's elite camp, and obviously Cooper Flag, who's went viral.
Oh
He
yeah.
was really, really good. The kid AJ from Boston, I'm not sure his full name, but he was really, really talented. There were a bunch of guys out there that were really good. Jaden Quintons came and spent a week with me in LA, and he was super raw at the beginning of the week, and at the end of the week, I saw why he was a top kid. But man, I'll tell you what, the kids these days are so much more talented and skilled than, I was, or, the elite players in like, a decade ago were. It's amazing how, much training has evolved, how much, player development has evolved. And, these young guys, they have a bag of moves and a bag of tricks that is, beyond anything that we thought was possible. You think I graduated high school in 2008. In 2008, if you had, high school basketball, if you were a high school basketball player and you had step backs, pullbacks, Euro steps, and, like a one go-to move, you were considered like a skilled player.
Yeah.
Nowadays, there's third graders doing Euro steps and cross steps and step backs and Steph Curry shuffle backs and stuff like that. So the game has just evolved a ton. And I think it's really encouraging to see where the game is at and where it's going.
Drew, before I ask you the last Knicks question, I thought of this one RJ question, and it's about we go into a time machine, right? We're 15 years into the future. What are the accolades that RJ Barrett has at the end of his career, the day he retires from the NBA? Are we talking 2 or 3 All-Star games? Are we talking a couple All-NBAs? He has an NBA championship as the second or third best player, maybe the best player on a team. Just absolute peak, top of the line scenario. What do you think happens in the year 2038, looking back on RJ Barrett's career?
Yeah, I mean, I would start with, I think that he's going to be a champion just because he's won at every level. He won high school, he won, in college. I know he didn't win it all in college just one year, but he was just a winner. I remember when, he was a U19 and led the Canada to beat USA, which was such a big upset,
Yep.
and he dominated that game. So I just think first and foremost, he's a winner. So I would definitely say that he's going to win at some point during his career. I definitely think that he'll be in multiple All-Star games. He's one of those guys though that I think because it doesn't look as good, I feel like a lot of people, are going to discredit him until he makes a couple of those things happen. It's funny. The other day, the NBA posted a video of our workout, and one of the things that we do to warm up with him, just because you want to wake up his muscles, is we basically do these like slow motion where he's really slow so that he works on going from slow to fast, and so he can speed his body. It's like something that I don't even do. It's basically it's like science based stuff where if you can turn your fires on, or your muscles on, if you can fire them, then it helps out. I don't even know the science behind it. It's all based on his performance coach, and so then he basically just goes up. He goes from real slow to dunking. And everybody's like, look at how slow RJ is. And I'm like, guys, he just walked in the gym 5 minutes ago. And instead of us doing like touching your toes, what he's doing is these methodical movements into trying to explode and dunk. And so I think that people are going to continue to hate on him until, some of these accolades roll in. But, if he ends his career with a couple All-Star appearances and a championship, I think that he'll be really proud of what he was able to accomplish.
We posted a shorter version of that video on our Instagram, and we didn't include any biased or unbiased level of captioning. We just said RJ working on his offhand, shooting floaters and dunking or something. And there were so many comments that were saying exactly what you're saying. So people do overreact a lot to what they see in 1% of knowledge of a video.
I mean, and again, that's what I always say is like, I'm not one of those people too. When the NBA comes to film us, I'm not going to change what we're doing just to make them look good. I've done that in pre-draft videos. We do it all the time.
That checks out. That makes sense.
In pre-draft, you're trying to move guys up the draft board. So, when you have somebody come in to film, what do? You try to make them look as good as possible. But a lot of times that's fool's gold instead of real gold. You see it every year. I'm not going to name drop, but people know. You see summer videos where they look great, and then during the NBA season, it just doesn't translate. And believe it or not, the funniest video that I've ever been in or included in was a Bill Simmons spoof where when I was working out Joel Embiid before Joel had ever played a game, this was when Joel was still hurt, so he hadn't played an NBA game. And we released a video, and it was me guarding Joel. And basically they made like an 8-minute spoof of, wow, Joel Embiid's going to be like Wilt Chamberlain because he can score on this 5'5" white kid. I'm like, first off, I'm 5'11". Second off, I played college basketball and at a high level, which none of the guys that were making fun of me did. And I was like, third off, just wait till you see what Joel's going to be. And then his rookie season, he averages 20 points a game. And then he goes on to, being an MVP and 2-time scoring leader. And this is all, him still entering the prime of his career. And I'm like, all right, here we go again. And I had the same thing with Jayson Tatum. Everybody was like, he can't shoot at Duke. He's not going to ever be able to shoot the three knocks on Jayson were he couldn't shoot. He couldn't play defense, and he wasn't athletic enough. And sure enough, he takes LeBron, he puts LeBron on a poster in his first or second year in the NBA in the playoffs. Then, he obviously shot 43%. So I've dealt with the criticism for me as a trainer all my career. And at the end of the day, I always look and say, listen, there's a reason why all these guys are all-stars and max players and this and that. And I think RJ's on the same path. It's RJ gets criticized, and I get criticized, rightfully so sometimes. At the end of his career, judge the body of his work, and that's all that matters. So I think that RJ's on a great path. If you look at players under the age of 23, what he's been able to accomplish, it's really good. It all stacks up. And now it's just about becoming more efficient and more consistent. And I think those things will happen as he continues to get better and as he continues to get older.
100%, man. And you said Bill Simmons and Joel Embiid. Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo, I listen to their stuff a lot. They still keep their preconceived notions of what they think Joel Embiid is. So even with MVPs and becoming who he is today, you can't make everyone a believer until they get a ring on their finger, like Sugat says. So at the end of the day, you can't even, what are you going to do with those types of guys,
Yeah. And again, I've got to know both those guys. Ryan, I think, I've got to know more than Bill, but both of those guys, I mean, they put out content every single day. They have one of the best podcasts out there. And you know what? I think some of the criticism is fair. Like I said, like Knicks fans that hit me up and are like, RJ needs to be more consistent. I'm like, I agree with you, and
Yeah.
hey, you need to do a better job of doing this. I agree with you. I do need to help him do that stuff. So I think sometimes criticism is fair. I think that's one thing that's, these players are great and they get paid a lot of money. And I think that's part of what comes with it is, they are in the public spotlight but I always say this to regular folks. And when I say regular folks, it's not a diss. It's to people that have a normal job, a normal, life, etc. When you go to work every day, imagine if everybody judged every moment that you do. Like, you get on your phone at work instead of being 100% productive. And we're like, oh, he's not 100% productive today.
Yeah.
This is an off day. You know what I mean? Like, really think about that. Like, think about a guy that's making a burrito at a taco shop. And it's like, oh, he left a little bit of sauce off of this burrito. It's like, that's basically what people do to professional athletes. They expect them to be great all the time. And a normal professional athlete, and this is the mindset, of a normal, let's say there's 82 games in a season. Let's say they sit out 10 games for whatever, load management or injuries or whatever. 10 games are going to be bad, like really bad. Even the good players, there's going to be 10 really bad games. And then there's going to be 10 games where they're really, really special. And then there's going to be 52 games where they're up and down and they're average.
Right.
That's what a normal, typical NBA season is. There's 52. They were pretty good tonight. There's 10 where they were, man, that player is awesome. And there's 10, damn, they were dog shit that night. And so when you look at it, that's what it is. And then what we do is then we put them under even a bigger microscope in the playoffs. And we say, all right, everybody that wins, they were a success, and everybody that loses, they were a failure. That's not really the case. I look at this, and I said something the other day on a podcast, and it was funny because the interviewer was like, "Oh shit, I never realized that." But I train players I train 12 guys full time. They play on 11 different teams. The only teammates that I currently train full time are Maxey and Embiid,
Right.
and Maxey just started with me this year. That means that at least 10 of my guys are going to lose next season. They're not going to win a championship. So that means 10 fan bases are going to blame me. You didn't do your job. You didn't help our player win for our team. Now,
what amazing irrationality, honestly.
One player might win it. So if one player does win it, that fan base is going to say, wow, Drew, you're the GOAT. You did a great job. But the other 10 fan bases are going to think that I completely failed them because I can't win. Now think of players. You look at NBA champions, okay? And in the last 30 years, I think there's only two. You'll have to fact check me on this. I think there's only two teams that have won a championship that have not had a player that has won MVP at some point in their career on their roster. Two. You have the Toronto Raptors, who they did not have an MVP on their roster.
And the
and you
Detroit
have
Pistons.
the Detroit Pistons. Every other team has had an MVP. So the Knicks don't have an MVP, which means historically speaking, they should not win the championship. And you look and you go, Denver Nuggets, they had an MVP. Milwaukee Bucks, they had an MVP. The Warriors, they had an MVP. All LeBron's teams have had an MVP in LeBron. You look at Kobe Bryant, MVP. Shaquille O'Neal, MVP. Tim Duncan, MVP. Michael Jordan, MVP. Hakeem Olajuwon, MVP. Dirk Nowitzki, MVP. So the teams that have won, Kevin Garnett won an MVP. The teams that have won have had an MVP. So, that's something that's crazy to think about. Also, another thing, I think it's like 33 out of the last 35 or something like that. 31 out of the last 33 champions have had a guy in the current season that they won was a top 7 in MVP candidate. So if a team doesn't have a top 7 player in the league that season, it's mathematically not impossible, but the possibility is very, very, very low that they can win a championship. Right. So if you're listening to this, whether you're a Knicks fan or another team's fan, if you don't have a player on your team that finishes in top 7 in the MVP voting, historically speaking, you're probably not going to win the championship. So when I study these, what it takes to be a champion, I mean, it's hard to win a championship in this league. And, I know that like I said, most of my clients are not going to win next season because they don't play on the same team. So I'm going to have 10 angry fan bases that when their team loses, they're going to say, well, we didn't get it done. And the greatest possibility is one fan base says, wow, you helped our guys get it done. Other than that, it could be 0 for 11 or it could be 1 for 11, but it's not going to be more than that. So I think that's, the thing that current NBA fan bases don't understand is it takes a lot to win a championship. And, but my job is to help my players get as best as they can. And hopefully, that some of them have a chance to win, at some point during their career. But to win a ring is special. To win multiple rings is very special. But that's the ultimate goal, is to win when it matters most, which is in the playoffs, and in the finals.
100%. And it's the curse of small sample size, whether someone is actually able to do it or not in matchups. And it comes down to a lot that doesn't even involve their overall greatness as an NBA player in the regular season. Drew, you have been fantastic, man. I did not expect to get an hour of you. Thank you very, very, very much. 2 last things before you go. First and foremost, obviously plug whatever you want to plug. And secondly, because this is a Knicks podcast, I have to ask, what is your expectations for the Knicks this upcoming season?
Yeah, I don't need to plug anything. Like I said at the beginning, I just shout out to all the Knicks fans that stay through and through and just look at the body of work instead of the game by game, sample size. And then, as far as what I think the Knicks are going to do this season, I think they're a contender. I think that they're up there. Obviously, I think there's teams that are above them as far as on paper goes, with the superstars, like I mentioned. You got the teams at the top are the guys that have the superstars. You have Giannis with the Bucks, you have Joel with the Sixers, you have Jayson with the Celtics, you have Jokic with the Nuggets, you have LeBron with the Lakers, you have, the Kawhis. Like, you look at the top teams, those guys all have superstars. And so, while the Knicks might not have one of those superstar guys that is going to be, an all first team, all NBA type of player, I think that their way to do it is going to be with depth and with the ability to, throw multiple bodies at different guys and give teams different looks based on matchups. So, they've got a good coaching staff. They've got, good players. They've got depth. So now it's just about getting hot at the right time. And, you look at last year, the Miami Heat were definitely not the best team on paper, and they were not the best team all season. But the Heat won the Eastern Conference because they got hot at the right time and they all clicked when it mattered most. And so as a Knicks fan, I think that's what you're hoping for, is improvement throughout the season, improvement and growth from each individual player. And then hopefully they can put it all together at the right time, in the playoffs to make a run.
I sure absolutely hope so, because I want to see a Knicks championship in my lifetime. And Drew, thank you so very, very much, man. This was fantastic. You've almost made me late for work, and it's totally worth it. I'm not going to lie.
I appreciate that. Have a good rest of the day. And then, like I said, I'll try to see you sometime when I'm up there at a Knicks game with RJ.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. And let's go Knicks. Peace.